Welcome to the Woo and Science podcast. Boy, today do we have an exciting surprise. I'm not even going to give you a sneak peek of what's coming, but hold on to your chairs because you're up for a really big, exciting ride. More when we come back.
Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Dr. Meaghan Longyear. This is my better half and definitely more talkative half, Dr. Meaghan Longyear. We have a special treat on the podcast for you guys today. If you guys are patients of ours or you've ever used BrainTap, you've probably heard me refer to it as a neuro nap. To integrate the different therapies and things like that we do, and we do entrainments with this piece of equipment. Well, this is going to be the voice you hear on the other end of that and the developer of that. This guy is one of the smartest, if not the smartest dude that I know in a lot of different things. He has a PhD in, and I actually just found this out, in Christian psychology. And I have a whole bunch of questions just off of that. But he also does work with Quantum University, and he really blends the idea of the woo and the science beautifully. If you've ever heard him talk from the stage or seen any of his presentations, he's amazing, and he blends that really, really well. So it'll be interesting to see where this conversation goes to some of the weird stuff and some of the scientific stuff. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Patrick Porter on stage here, the developer of the BrainTap. Welcome, Doc. Thanks for coming. Super excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I love that neuro nap. I think I'm going to use that. That's great.
You can feel anything you want. It's great because, we do a lot of weird stuff in the office, and you've seen our office, the one we had in Atlanta, and now it's even weirder with this one on board. As far as getting into some of the, the more meditative things, but then she does a lot of things outside of the realm of what I would say hard science, or what was traditionally thought of as hard science. But what I love with what you guys are doing, you play in so many sandboxes, but if we just start like with the Quantum University piece, I love what you guys are doing in bringing, the idea of quantum physics into the realm of healthcare and how that mindset really matters, but also kind of into the other things. So kind of jump in wherever you want with that piece.
Yeah, when you think about ancient traditions, I mean, a lot of what we're doing in science today is proving out these ancient traditions, right? Because they were doing these things like looking at a candle to meditate.
Yeah.
I mean, your brain, we all have mirror neurons, and those mirror neurons are listening and observing the environment. So that candle is flickering at 10 hertz frequency. So now our body will match that. We start to create acetylcholine and the other neurotransmitters that are associated with alpha. And so we now know that's science, but it's woo-woo. Right? So people go, why do you do this? So when you think about, my father used to call it cosmic foo-foo, that people were into, and the reality is that cosmic foo-foo is now becoming cosmic fact.
Yeah.
Because science is proving it.
Yeah, and I love that. I've used that candle one before. I've heard you say that one as part of your lecture. And I've always, after hearing that, I'm like, well, that's why everybody's so mesmerized by a campfire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how it just brings us down to that level. Or another, and I forget the hertz specifically, but waves crashing has that that same kind of natural.
Yeah, 10 hertz. I mean, in ancient times, we'd get up in the morning, we're part of the food chain, so we didn't need a cup of coffee. We were like, get up or you're going to be eaten, so we get up, we'd be running and doing whatever we're going to be doing. And then we get near the ocean or the lake or a river, we'd sit down, we'd relax. That water has a calming effect. It has an evoked potential, they could say, of 10 hertz. That's also alpha. Yeah. That's the neutral for the brain. So when you're in neutral for the brain, you can start to disengage the default mode network, that monkey mind that everybody has. And if we can disengage that for a little bit, because we all have this tape loop, like 60,000 words that plays in our head. And unfortunately for most people, it's negative, right? They say 80% of it's negative thinking, but it's not really negative. It's protecting us. Because in part of the woo-woo that we'll really send them on a woo-woo chase here. The Hopi Indians said that 7 generations epigenetically are affecting us. Our ancestors are affecting us. What would we call them? Our future generations, 7 generations. So how's that happening? But science is now proving that true, because in 2018, they proved that when they did the DNA testing, and they said, hey, we mapped the human genome. but they only map 1%, right? I mean, could you imagine going through Life University and you only answer 1% of the questions and you say, give me my chiropractic degree?
Right.
It wouldn't
I
happen.
think they'd laugh at you.
Right. So what they did was they published it and they said, hey, we mapped it. It's 1%. The other's junk. No, in 2018, they found out that 99% actually is changing every 40 seconds.
Wow.
So imagine that. And if I could take both of your DNA and I could stretch it from here, it would go to Pluto.
Yeah.
It's a crystalline structure that's inside your body right now. And its whole job is to absorb light energy and transmit codes from the universe to your body to tell you what to do. Now, hold on, everyone. If you think this is too woo, the sun, think of the sun for a moment. I'm really going to get woo-woo on you here. The sun, think of the sun as the mitochondria for our solar system.
Okay.
Because that sun is beaming codes to our body. We call it the circadian rhythm. Right at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when our temperature drops 2 degrees, and we want to have a cup of coffee or tea or chocolate, it's really our body saying, hey, it's time for a nap. Because our DNA says we're in the Serengeti. What happens at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the Serengeti? Everybody's taking a nap. There's no lions chasing zebras or anything like that. They're all napping. Now, at 2 o'clock a.m. in night, your temperature increases 2 degrees. Now, how does our body know that? It's because the sun is beaming codes to us through light to our body. And our body is then taking it through the DNA, broadcasting it through. Now, our DNA then takes that code, and then we broadcast it back out into the universe. And this is not, it's not me saying this. This is scientific fact now. So we have this, that's why DNA is becoming so important. And then now they're saying, hey, it's not just DNA anymore. It's epigenetics. Yeah. So you can either, and they know that the two factors that the listeners should really be concerned with is, are you a pessimist or an optimist? Because if you're a pessimist, you're downgrading your DNA. When they said, if you think you can't, you're right. You know, Henry Ford. Yeah. The epigenetics proves that right. Because if you're negative, you're actually going to downgrade your epigenetic expression. But if you're optimistic and you have optimistic thinking and you're looking at a problem and you're going to solve it, your epigenetics actually upgrades and you start to think differently and you get into different realms of possibility. And that's where quantum physics comes in. When we talk about the quantum realm and why I'm working with Quantum University, because we believe that medicine, really, everybody's looking for a chemical solution for electrical problem. Yeah. So think of it, we're all those things, but mostly we are energy and light, right? So it's all an energy equation. So if we don't have the energy in the brain, we can't process. And that energy from the brain goes down the spine, the keyboard to the brain, yep, goes out into the limbs. So most people are trying to put a pill in, and it's like putting a 55-gallon drum into a polluted pond. You know, you have to work on the whole field, the field of energy. And one thing that maybe it's not woo-woo now, because the our NIH, the same people that are trying to kill us, they actually have on their website, they have what they call the biofield.
Yeah. Yep.
And they talk about it. They say all illness starts in the field.
Oh, I didn't realize.
So why would they say that? It's right on their website. In 1994, they decided that. And I'll just give one research, and then I'll let you ask your question. They did a research project with mice, and they found that these mice, when they run through a maze, they found that they wanted to find out, how do these mice remember how to run the maze? So they started taking segments of their brain out. Pretty soon they got down to the brainstem, and the mice were still able to run the maze. What they determined was the information was not stored in the brain. The information was stored in the field. Yeah. Wow. So think of your tissue. When they say the issues are in the tissues, yeah, that's true, but it's almost like the ghost in the tissue. Okay. Because the tissue is the transmitter and receiver of information. The information is from the field. So we have this field of energy around us. We know we have a magnetic heart. Yeah. And 18 feet away, we can measure your heart rate variability. So when you think about energy and flow, if you don't have energy, you can't broadcast that frequency. So we compress. And at a cellular level, if we're looking at cellular damage, when we get stressed, our cells compress. They need to breathe and aspirate, just like our lungs. And our mitochondria's job is to absorb light energy, transmit light energy. And just like our sun is the solar system is our mitochondria for our solar system, every cell has its own solar system, and it's broadcasting cells to it and it to others, and on and on it goes. So that's where quantum physics, we can get really woo-woo here if you
No.
want. So
So cool.
I am going to say this, though. I don't know that I like you as a guest anymore. You just gave her a whole bunch of ammo
I'm
against
like
me.
vibrating over here. I just like keep talking. Like, wow, this is amazing.
I always live by the motto, and she yells at me, I'm going to plan for the worst and hope for the best. But now you're telling me that
Right.
if I'm doing that, I'm down regulating my DNA.
Dr. Porter,
So
well, really, you're thinking like a shaman, which is good. A shaman says you should live like today's your last day on earth.
yeah,
What would you do if this was your last day? Who would you love? What would you do? What would you accomplish? But plan your life as if you're going to live forever.
okay.
So that's a good strategy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's a good thing.
Well, and that brings me to one of the other conversations that you and I had, because we've always said, and I was just reading today about the best way to improve serotonin in the brain is actually with sunlight. And it used to be that in neuroscience, we thought that sunlight was really only perceived in the suprachiasmatic nucleus and then acted on the pineal gland to set our sleep and wake and melatonin. But I remember you and I having a conversation about chromophores and how we actually have chromophores on every cell in our body. And for those of you guys listening, a chromophore is actually a receptor on a cell that receives light. So even the cells that you think don't receive light, you still have receptors on them to receive light. And that's why things like red light therapy can be so beneficial, or lasers, or any of the BrainTap has the auricular therapy, the red and the blue lights in the ear to activate different points for the meridian system in Chinese medicine. And through those chromophores, you can activate a lot of different aspects. So I think this amazes me.
Yeah, I tell people, think of it like a Tesla battery.
Okay.
Okay, so you have a battery that you want to charge. And when you add red light therapy or any light therapy that's tuned light, that's good light for the body, it will actually spin up ATP production.
Yep.
This is what builds the body. Everything we do is to build ATP, to repair, replenish, and make the body work. So if you had a Tesla and it took 32 minutes to charge it, if you use a laser, it can take lasers faster. But if you do the like we use low level light, so it takes 32 minutes, but 32 times the amount of energy is generated in a minute than it would be if you weren't using it.
That's awesome.
So the cells, it bypasses all the digestion. A lot of people think they get their energy from the food they eat, which is true. You get it in about 4 to 6 hours. You get a psychological boost when you eat that Snickers bar, but it's not really an energy boost. It's a false signal to the brain, and the brain then the chemical factory that creates 30,000 different neurochemicals starts to make you feel good, and you get this dopamine rush, and you think, wow, I'm satisfied now. Like the commercials where they have the angry guy and he becomes a nice guy. The reality is that, and then you have the letdown. They don't show him laying on the floor writhing in pain because sugar just had all those neurotoxins, because it was like the Trojan horse that got in there and killed him. But so light energy, what you're talking about, like especially with lasers and low level light therapy and the therapies you use at your clinic, those are therapies of your body. We need those lights. So imagine we should be running around naked, 20 hours a day when, one thing that I learned in India that was really surprising to me, because I work with Ames Bhopal, the MIT of India, and I was talking about depression and how they use light therapy for depression, because seasonal affective disorder, people have that.
Yep.
And there's all this talk about blue light. I said, well, if you took away blue light, everybody would have seasonal affective disorder. We live in a blue light planet. It's just the bad blue light, like the screens we're looking at and things like that. We don't have anything to mitigate it. So, but what they did in the Vedas, they actually talk about if 10,000 years ago, if you came to the chieftain and you said, I'm depressed, okay, get up 2 hours early in the morning, sit outside. Because 2 hours before sunrise, there's more infrared light hitting the planet.
Because of the reflection. Interesting.
That's when more infrared light hits the planet 2 hours before sunrise. So they would have to come out. So now what we can do, imagine you have a laser now that can generate more light in 1 minute than they get in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
This is biohacking, right? It's quantum. We can now take science and say, hey, this was an ancient tradition. We can take it, make it, mechanize it. We can commercialize it. We can now scale it, take it across the world, and take this ancient tradition and make it available to everyone in the planet.
Yeah.
And they can start getting the benefit.
Yeah, so society won't let us run around naked. So we're never going to get enough sunlight to make enough vitamin D. That's why everybody's D deficient and everybody's serotonin deficient, because we can't in our society do what we actually need to do or have time. It's like I tell patients all the time, like they say 10,000 steps a day. That's really supposed to be 12 miles, which is closer to like 40,000 steps. And the amount of sunlight you would need without clothes is the equivalent of 8 to 10 hours. And we just, unfortunately, can't lay around naked for 10 hours outside. So.
Yeah. Well, they did a test, actually. They did a study in New York where they had people on top of buildings laying out naked. They still could not get enough vitamin D.
Really?
Because they've created this. The government's actually said they put these particles in the air like aluminum and things like that. They're blocking the light from the sun. They don't realize that, maybe they do realize, who knows what's going on, but they're blocking the codes to tell our body what to do.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to hack it. We have to use lasers. We have to use low light therapy. We have to use different things. We have to become our own caretakers, because the caretakers of the planet are gone. We're the savior now. It's no one's coming to save us. We got to save ourselves.
Well, we're a lot easier to control when we're blocked from source, so to speak, right? Like what you're talking about. And I always jokingly say, if I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on and talk about all the things that are being done to us, I don't think you need the tinfoil hat so much anymore. Most of it is kind of the conspiracy theories have almost come to conspiracy facts at this point.
Yes.
One of the fascinating things, and I want to come back to this just because I can't believe the NIH said this, and I got to go look for it. It's in the field first, because I've always thought that. And, if we want to get really weird and even branch into something I know you enjoy, is like the Akashic record and how all knowledge is kind of stored there, and how we all actually have that connection on a different level. How do we tap into that? Because I actually think there's some BrainTap versions that do help us tap into that.
Yes. Yeah, we do. It's all coherence, right? So when people are running around every day doing their everyday mundane jobs and what they're doing, and they're thinking this 3D reality is it, then the body says, okay, this is the box you're going to live in. But as soon as you expand your perception and you start seeing, we all have blind spots, that, right? So like when you go into the kitchen and say, where's the salt shaker? And she says, Meaghan says, hey, it's right there on the counter. You say, no, it's not. And then she says, here it is. You go, it wasn't there a minute ago. Well, it was there, but you have a blind spot. So I always tell people, put your fingers out in front of you, do this, and you'll see a point, they'll disappear. Your fingers will disappear. We have a physical blind spot. We also have a psychological blind spot. We also have a spiritual blind spot.
Okay.
And they actually have material now. If you go on YouTube and go to like Harry Potter invisibility cloak, they actually have designed something like his invisibility cloak. You can put it on. You can't see the person. They're right in front of you because they reflect light.
Yeah, using reflectors.
So our brain is doing that all the time. And I know you know this, Michael, but when you look at the reality that we're living in, this isn't the reality we're living in. If we took the spectrum of light, sound, and vibration that we're a part of and put it across the screen as saying that's it, but it's infinite. But let's say it's just that amount out. We're not even a hair's breadth.
Yep.
But all of that is happening at the same time. So what's happening right here, right now, while we're here? So while we're having this conversation, our photons are flowing back and forth. We're having a conversation on a energy level that's different than the conversation we're having on a conscious level.
Yep.
That's why when you probably had it happen to you, you go, oh man, I'm thinking about somebody, and then they call you on the phone or they text you.
Yes.
You go, wow, that's weird. I was just thinking about you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you're in the field.
Yeah, that we're connected to that consciousness, right?
Yes.
So we all have that ability to tap in, and if you're laser focused enough, that happened 3 times this week. I was thinking about some patients I haven't heard from or people I haven't heard from, and I got text messages from all 3 of them today. So it's like, you're tapped into that field and kind of that understanding.
That's why every morning when I do my meditation, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, how many people are doing BrainTap today? And I think about the network.
Yes.
Because we have 120,000 users now, so we want to expand. We want to better 1 billion brains. So think of the coherence of 100 or 1 billion brains all in coherence,
Yeah.
how that would transform the planet.
Amazing.
The morphogenetic field. They say that they call it this frequency that we have around the planet that's in gamma, really, or 7.8 hertz frequency in theta, where we have this coherence. If we could all get in that state, we'd all instantly be awake.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So imagine it's not like it's like when boiling water, right? You wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and finally when it starts boiling, it just goes crazy. That's what's happening right now. People are waking up.
Yeah.
The consciousness is waking up. The codes are happening. The light's coming. They can't stop it. Because the light doesn't care what particles they put in the air. They call them neutrinos now. They've got a term for it now. These neutrinos, and they now have a supplement that I'm waiting for. I got it at the biohacking event. I'm waiting to get it. But you take it and they actually process it in a lab where it's like in space with noble gases and things, and it puts this molecule in it, and it's they used to use it. They got it from Egypt because the pharaohs used to use it, and they would go on these journeys. And because we do need the chemical component, because think of our chemical. This body is not us, right? When we decide to leave, if they were to weigh us, they've done this in science.
Yep.
If they were to weigh us, we lose 3/4 of an ounce.
Yeah.
That's who we are. We're not this blood and guts and vomit. This is just the body. This is when I wake up in the morning, I go, okay, I guess I got this costume on again. It's like a costume party. We get up and we put this costume on, and then we got to take care of it. It's like our vehicle. But some people don't like our cars. We won't put the wrong gas in our car, but we'll put the wrong gas in our vehicle. Our body vehicle. So we have to take care of the vehicle because that's what's driving us around. It's what we see through, hear through, smell through, taste through, touch and feel through. But it's not us. The Sikhs say the seer can never be the seen. So if you can think about that for a moment, whatever you're thinking, like who's thinking that thought? You can go crazy too. You don't want to say that out loud in a group of psychologists like me. But the reality is that you're not that person.
Right.
You want to. So there's always that like the devil on the shoulder and the angel on the shoulder. They're always talking to you because you have this incredible 100 billion neurobit processor that's always processing information. It's trying to figure out where we are in space and time, not only physically like you do with chiropractic care, but also where are we at in the universe. And when we started this, we're actually like probably 1 billion miles away from where we started, because the Earth's moving at 166,000 miles an hour, and our solar system's moving at another 500 and something thousand miles an hour, and our solar system. I mean, we're billions of miles now from where we started, but we're still talking. We're still here. We're still communicating.
No wonder I like to drive fast.
People think that they can't change. So you wanted to get woo-woo, so I'm going to get woo-woo.
No.
Holiness.
I know she's over here vibrating in her chair. So
wow. Yes.
Well, I love what you said about how, I know all of her people are saying you can't stop the vibration rays, right? Is how I've always heard you refer to it is.
Yeah, you can't stop it. It's like somebody like a little kid standing at the ocean trying to stop the waves.
That's a great way to. I love that.
One thing when you think about it, the saying is you can't separate the light from the sun. You can't separate the wave from the ocean. You can't separate source from us.
Right. Well, and we're more.
We can block it. We can try to block it. We can do whatever. And that's where the frustration comes in, and the anxiety and the depression and all of those things, because it's emotion, energy and motion.
Yes.
So remember, it's all an energy equation. So if we can keep the energy flowing, it's all what we give away. It's not what we keep. It's what we give away, because we're transducers. So the more we give, the more we get. So, and I tell somebody when they're depressed, I say, who are you going to go help today? What do you mean? I need help. No, you need to help somebody. That's why you're depressed.
Yeah.
Because we need connection. As human beings, we are connected. We're not disconnected. When you think you're disconnected, that's when you feel like God left you, or, life isn't working for you, or your body's failing you. But it's all about connection.
Well, and we used to think that, I've often taught this, that we're one of two animals on the planet that need that one-on-one connection. Like doing this over Zoom is great, but you need actual physical touch and direction to pass those electrons back and forth. But now they're realizing that every animal actually needs that. And if you're a life form, you need to
Well,
have,
what Jesus said, when two or more together, there I am.
yeah.
So there's a third, right? So that third is the quantum.
Okay.
Ah.
It's that connectivity.
So the field, you two are generating a field together and separately. And now we're generating a field together and separately. And anybody watching is generating a field together and separately. So that field, no matter, that's when somebody goes, how do you make a video go viral? Well, that's how it happens, right? It starts with 1, then 2, then 3, but it's more of the Fibonacci sequence. But that's the way that it
now
works.
you're speaking my language. I could nerd out on some numbers for a while there. We'll get some 3 6s and 9s going, bring tests over.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just fascinating. And I hate that this is proving a lot of what you tell me all the time, right? But
and it's recorded, babe.
Once again, I'm done in by modern technology and quantum physics. And so I've always been fascinated, and I love the kind of idea of how you, and I've followed all the iterations. I've actually had, I think, just about every version, from Porter Vision to MindFit to BrainTap now. How did you develop this? Because it's such a powerful tool that you can put somebody into that entrainment. Well,
the story, the past that I believe is true, I'll say that, is that I was a failing second grader. I was told I wasn't very smart. I wasn't going to learn much. But my dad got into the Silva method, which was a meditation, and he had a sound that he called the Silva sound, which we would now call isochronic tones. Yeah. And it was this weird sound. My dad would play in the back of the seminars, because I grew up doing seminars with my dad teaching people how to meditate, and we grew up Catholic. So the whole thing was about, in the Catholic Church, taught this thing called stress reduction seminars that helped my dad get off alcohol. And then when I got older, I was never going to do what my dad did. Here I am, so that's how it works. But I loved electronics. I'm a geek at heart. So I wanted to build things with electronics, but they didn't have electronics like we have today. I mean, computers didn't even have monitors when I grew up. So when people were doing these things, so when I got into it, I was just tinkering around, and I actually, really woo-woo. I worked with a guy, his name is Gil Gilly. He's out of Arizona. He's still alive. He's over 100 years old now. And when I was working with him, he can actually read your mind. I'm not kidding. You think a thought, he will tell you what you're thinking. He was born that way. And he said he's been examined and he's normal. He said, what's wrong with you? That's what he tells me.
I love that.
And he told me, I was working with him at his church, because I'm a Christian counselor. And at the time I said, you don't make any money being a Christian counselor, So at some point, I was 25 years old. I said, I got to make a little money here. People would pay me $5, or maybe they'd say, thank you, or something like that. And so I said, I got to go. He said, Patrick, you're going to go invent something that's going to change the world. He said, I want you to go to Vegas. You're going to meet somebody there. Her name is Linnea. And you're going to meet her between things. He said, go to my room in Harrods. Because I used to do a show with him. He was a mentalist. And I used to do the show before him. I used to do a little stage show with him. And then he told me, go there and you're going to meet her between things. She's going to introduce you to a technology that you're going to revolutionize. And when I went to that event, and they had this big machine. It looked like a microwave, big giant machine. It was $10,000. I had no money, remember? And she stops me in the middle of the, walking through the vendor booth, how the vendor halls are. And she says, hey, I want to show you something. I said, I got to get to this talk. And she says, my name's Linnea. I said, you're the reason I'm here. She goes, what do you mean? I said, never mind. I said, show me what you got. She puts me on this device. It looks like woodworking goggles, and it has earphones, and they're manually doing it. There's no computer chips, no EEPROM chips, no nothing.
Okay.
And I go on a trip. I mean, this trip is bizarre. I mean, I'm on a spaceship. I'm flying through space, and I know everybody. It's like you and I talking right now. I'm on this ship. I'm flying through space. I have I don't know what you want to call it, out of body. I've never had it since. But when I got on that piece of equipment and I got off, and I went, and I'm a Trekkie kind of guy, I'm a sci-fi guy. So I thought, man, my imagination went crazy. This is awesome. I said, that's great. So I kept coming back to the booth. People do that with BrainTap all the time too. Yep. And then I came back at the end of the event, and they're all crying at the booth. And I said, Linnea, what's going on? She goes, Dr. Robinson, the guy who invented this technology, died, and nobody knows how he built this. And I said, you know what? I have a degree in electronics. My undergraduate degree is in electronics.
Wow.
I said, where are you going to go after this? She goes, we have family in Scottsdale. We have 2 units to sell. Then we're out of a job. I said, I have an office in Scottsdale, Arizona. God put us together.
Yeah.
And then, so we exchanged numbers, no cell phones back then. Right. This was in the 80s. And I lost their number. I'm thinking, oh man, I sabotaged myself, whatever. And then a friend of mine who actually published my first book with Pure Light Publishing, his name is Jerry DeShazo. He calls me up on the phone and he says, Patrick, I met some people. I didn't put the 2 together at the time. He says, I met some people. I really think you need to meet them. This was 2 weeks afterwards.
Oh my God.
They show up. They come out with the box. It's the people. It's Larry and Linnea with Light and Sound that we started Light and Sound Research. And then I said we took it apart. We hired an engineer because I oversold myself. But we built it and we started making prototypes from Radio Shack. People remember that store.
Oh, yeah.
We went to Radio Shack. We bought all the parts. We bought an Improm chip because I said, why were we doing this manually? Let's just figure out what they're doing. And back then they didn't have EEG like we have today. We had a light panel and it would show different brain waves, and we used GSR, galvanic skin response systems, and things like that. And we started to realize, hey, when people were in this alpha state, they were out of pain. So we thought, hey, we can go to doctors and show them, hey, this was before opioids, right? So it was a big thing. How can we get people out of pain? Then opioids came along and people said, I want the pill. I don't want any skill. So and that's how it all started. And then I was just, I guess, smart enough to keep going. I'm the last man standing. Everyone else is gone. My brother Michael's still working with me. He's part of the group.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it ever since. And before the ones that you went with, we invented 3 different machines before that.
Okay.
So we had the MC square was the first one because I love Einstein. So we called it the MC square because we figured, we had it as an equation for creativity. Because when you expand your consciousness, you become more creative. And my mantra is, we don't need to learn what to think. We need how to think. Most people don't know how to think. In today's world, we need more people that think than more people book knowledge. There's 2 different kinds of knowledge out there in the world. And I'm a practitioner of the Maharishi's TM2. So he says there's 2 different kinds of knowledge. There's academic knowledge, which is good. And you can master that. That's easy. That's just memory, rote, things like that. But then there's transcendent knowledge. That's what I'm looking for. And so transcendent knowledge is, how do we operate at a higher level? How do we get a win-win-win situation, not a win-win situation? Because sometimes it could be a win-win for us, but it could hurt the environment, like what's going on in the world today.
Right.
That's a win-win. Somebody makes a product, people buy it. Oh, that's great. But then it kills the environment. Yeah. It's got to be a win for everybody.
Yeah, I love that idea. I didn't know you were a electronics nerd. My tackle box when I was a kid was full of transistors and a solder gun and a bunch of things that I took apart from the kitchen. I used to get yelled at by my mom when I took apart her vacuum cleaner and tried to turn the motor into something else. So
yeah, that's my son. We said we buy him things. All you do is take them apart.
Yeah, that was me when I wanted.
He works on computers now, so yeah. I tell people, you're a transducer.
Yeah.
A transducer holds a charge and discharges. Yep. Every cell is like that, holds a charge and discharges. If you don't discharge, a lot of people are just holding that charge, like negative emotions. Think of negative emotions as you're holding that charge. Positive emotions, the only way you can have a negative emotion is stop breathing. If you breathe through anger, you can't have anger anymore. If you breathe through depression, you can't have depression anymore. You can only have joy, peace, love. So we're designed for flow states. And like the Hindu religion, for instance, that's not a religion. That was the British. They made it a religion. The Hindus said that our body is designed for evolution. We're designed to evolve. We're not even finished yet. In 2015, you know this, in 2015, they found a new part of the human anatomy, the glial lymphatic system.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't realize.
So imagine that when you were in school, and when I was in school, physiology books, the lymph system stopped here. Yep. But now it goes all the way into the brain. What else is inside of us?
Well, and
that isn't activated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
we are X-Men.
Taking one step further.
What else is in?
You have more glial cells than you have neurons. And then they just think that glial cells provide energy and create a barrier. I don't think we've even tapped into what our glial cells are possible of. I think the glial lymphatic system was the first part of maybe understanding that. But I think, the understanding and the science that's going to be around what glial cells do, other than just glue everything together, which is what glial means. But I think that's where, I love this idea of like quantum, because you're learning a lot about fascia and how it's viscoelectric and it can create a charge and hold a charge and dissipate charge, talking about being a transducer. I think the glial cells do the same thing in the brain. I think that's almost the fascial network of the brain and can.
Yeah, I tell people that's the fiber optics that we have. It sends energy, it sends information. It's faster than the nervous system. So when people, it's the whole body. It's not just one thing. And most people, just for the listeners, for woo, so they understand, is when they designed yoga, right? When I went to India, I said, "What's the most important yoga pose?" You know what it is?
No.
The corpse pose.
Okay, I was going to say
because all other yoga poses are only to get you to meditate, to get you to the corpse pose. Because once you do the yoga, you move the body, move the fascia, get the energy flowing. Now you meditate on divine source or whatever you're going to meditate on. Now you settle. Now you get neuroplasticity.
That's
the neuroplasticity happens only when you're resting. So a lot of people jump up after yoga and think it's a physical exercise. That's not what it was designed for. It was designed to get your brain energy so you could meditate, so you could get into the corpse pose and have neuroplasticity. And imagine how stressful you would be if you knew tomorrow might not happen because you might be eaten by something.
Right.
It's very different than today. Today, our concerns are, is my social post going to get 100 likes or whatever, 1,000 likes or whatever?
Yep. Well, and that ties into the new research on the vagal nerve and neuroplasticity, that you increase neuroplasticity if you activate the vagal system first. If you don't activate vagus, you actually don't have neuroplasticity because your brain is actually breaking connections, trying to figure out what to do next. So
and that's what we showed with in science too, with Ames Paul. We showed chanting, praying. Like they called us Catholics bead mumblers, because you're saying the Hail Marys and Our Fathers and all that. But what you're doing is you're setting a vibrational tone.
Yeah.
That's stimulating the vagus nerve. And Dr. Sadral, who I know he's my science officer. Yeah. We've done a lot of tests on these vagal stimulators, and there's some good ones and there's some that are just scams. Yeah. But humming and singing are some of the best things you can do to trigger your vagus nerve. So sing in the shower, man. Sing like nobody's listening.
I gotta wait till nobody's around. Nobody wants to hear me.
That's why you do it on the drive into the car. That's why I'm always like, turn the talking heads off, talking about the sports crap, and let's just sing our favorite tunes. See, Dr. Porter said.
But in life, remember everything's cyclic. So just like a movie, if you've been to a movie, I always use the example of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That movie is so stupid. I remember when my kids were younger, I took them to it, and I'm sitting there going, I am wasting my time. This is terrible. But I know there's no wasted time in the universe, right? There's no wasted energy. But at the end of the movie, when Bill and Ted synchronize the solar system and the universe aligns and world peace happens, I walked out of the movie feeling so good. And I'm walking home with them from the movie, and I go, they got me. They did the circle because there's a circle, right? They took me through the highs, the lows, the peak moments, and they left me feeling good.
Yep.
That's what BrainTap does.
Yep.
Yeah. It's and it exercises your brain to an extent, right? And that's what I've always loved about the BrainTap is you can use it in the morning to get your brain up, and you can use it at night to put your brain to bed, kind of, right? So, or at least start that process and really create.
Yeah, the faster we can get them to delta, the more they're going to clean those glial cells like you're talking about. I tell people, it's like you're at a networking party, you're shaking hands with everybody. You got to wash your hands at some point.
That's what sleep does.
Those cells need to do.
Yeah, the delta. That's what I was just. It's funny you say that. I was just telling somebody that's when you go into delta, your neurons actually open up and it cleans your hands, or it cleans those connections so they can come back even stronger and create more of a neural network and more neuroplasticity. So, you might say it's fitness for your brain, and that actually leads us into. You were just telling us that you wrote another book.
Yeah, I partnered with Rishika Sakri. She's the head of Google. wellness, or she was. She said she wanted to come work for me. I said, I can't afford you. When she retired, she doesn't need me. They paid her really well to retire. She now has a fund where she funds people. But we wanted to talk. When I went into Google, we did a research study with them, with
Cool.
programmers, because they were all burning out after COVID.
Oh.
And I said, they need to do a session at 2:00 in the afternoon. And she said, what do you mean? And this was Julia Arndt. She actually had a TED Talk about it, where we showed if they take a 20-minute break in the middle of the afternoon, they actually got 26% more work done.
That's
because in the morning when you wake up, and you're talking about waking up, most people crush their cortisol trough because they have a cup of coffee.
yeah.
Coffee should be drank at 10 o'clock or later, because you want to have that cortisol high. You want to have your body making norepinephrine, dopamine, and cortisol in the morning. If you don't, the brain goes, are you going to do it for me? I won't do it anymore. And then you become addicted to coffee. But if you can wait, so, the longer you can wait, the better. Every once in a while, I just go on a coffee fast. I love coffee, but I don't want to be addicted to it. So the deal is, if I start feeling like I'm addicted to it, I stop drinking.
Same.
Because my body it shouldn't be dependent on anything. But you can use it. Caffeine's good. Like if I was a farmer and I had a horse I want to take to market, I give it some caffeine pills. It's going to go to the county fair. It's going to look really good. And then the next day they're going to get it home. It's going to droop, and it's not going to be worth anything because the caffeine was fake. It was a fake. It was a synthetic lift.
Yeah.
But our nervous system, if it's operating correctly and can regulate, you can have that energy, and it's a flow. So it's natural to feel low in the middle of the day. You're not depressed. You need a nap. You need a neuro nap, like you said.
Yep.
So that's the whole thing. And by the way, those people in the study, we never did anything for sleep. Their sleep improved 70% by doing a 20-minute session in the middle of the day.
Wow.
Because when you offload that stress, remember those trends we were talking about, capacitors. When you offload that energy, now for the listeners, most people know that they discharge on people that love them, right? So you get pulled over by the police, you're all angry and upset. God forbid the next person that angers you, because you're going to lash out at them. They're going to get all that energy because it's all stored in your cells. And then you're going to feel good, and they're going to feel, but you just transferred all that energy.
Oh, yes.
So we need a way to discharge and regulate our nervous system, because we're going to have good times. We're going to have bad times. Don't fly too high. Don't fly too low. And recognize when you're flying too high or too low, and stay balanced. That's the key.
That's what Dr. LaMarche. So another one of our mentors, and I know you know Dr. LaMarche. What we were just having a conversation about that. He's like, I always work on keeping my life right here. You're like, there's going to be little ups and little downs, but none of the big. And I feel like right now in our life, we're going through the big roller coaster. So we're having to kind of regulate and come back to that.
2 p.m.
Well, everyone is doing it right now. There's a lot happening right now. We're getting a lot of, they say that we're moving through we're not in the same universe we were in before. Remember, we're moving through space and time. Yeah. We're not in the same space, the same place, the same time. I mean, we made up time. Like when the song, Nobody Knows What Time It Is. Nobody knows really what time it is. We're in the now. And some people want to drag on the past, and that's why I call it the dragons of the past. And they want to, or they're predicting the future in terrible ways. A lot of people catastrophize. They don't get out of bed until they have enough fear, enough frustration, enough stress that they have to get out of bed. And that's why, like, gratitude and just focusing on things you're thankful for, we can set the vibrational tone. And I tell people, cell phones aren't the evil thing that we think they are. They could be broadcasting healing codes, but we're not the ones making them. So in the process, but we can choose our music.
Yeah.
We can set the soundtrack to our life. And it's okay to listen to sports, because I don't want my wife to see this and say I can't listen to sports.
You gotta let it break a little bit. So this idea, can you give us a little snippet of maybe what Brain Fitness Blueprint is going to be about, the book?
Yeah, well, we have a 30-day plan in there for people. It's not just BrainTap. So there's a lot more to it. So when you think about your body biologically, we can't think a bad diet. Right. So you got to eat right. So, and think of everything you put in your body is a medicine. Yep. And when Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine, he wasn't lying. So that everything you put in your body you're going to interact with it. Your body is going to have a vibrational charge to it. So on a quantum level, you might get a psychological charge out of it, but it's going to have a physiological downturn if you're eating sugar. So we talk about the neurotoxins in the world today. When somebody says they're addicted to something, it's probably because the big pharma or the big food industries have figured out what triggers those psychological triggers. And so there's food. So we talk about those in there. And we talk about how to eat fat, fiber, and protein, because that's what we need as humans, and it needs to be balanced, and really less is more. I mean, if you imagine when we were hunters and gatherers, we didn't get a 7-Eleven on every corner. We didn't get to go to the grocery store and have to choose from, 50 different choices. And God never put ingredient level labels on the food. We would watch animals eat it, then we would eat it. So we need to eat more fresh, alive food. So that's number one for brain fitness. Number two is we got to move and breathe. Yeah. Movement is life. If you don't have movement, especially in the spine, you're not going to do well, because the energy starts in the brain but moves down the spine out to the body. So if your spine isn't aligned, it's like when I was growing up in Michigan, we would watch the Tiger game, and either Michael or myself or my brother David would have to hold on to the rabbit ear antennas, and we would, okay, we're getting the game now. It wasn't like today where we got 500 channels and we get games 24/7. We'd have to watch the game when it played, and if we missed it, we missed it. But we were that frequency is being broadcast. Mm-hmm. So we need to get our body moving and breathing. And right now, when they say 20 minutes of setting is equivalent to smoking a cigarette, what they're saying is neurologically, it's equivalent to smoking a cigarette. It's not that you're smoking a cigarette. It's that your body starts to, when you settle down. This is what most people don't realize, why we have lights in the eyes when we have retinal flashing. When you close your eyes without retinal flashing, 30% of your brain will go to sleep. Your default mode network lights up. Now your monkey mind takes over, and you're not trained it. So what's going to happen? You're going to be flooded with all that internal dialogue that you've never dealt with your whole life. And it's going to be telling you all the shoulds and should nots and everything you can't do. So I always tell people you shouldn't should all over yourself. So when you think about that, and then but that's okay at first. Just let them go. I tell people it's like opening your window and the wind's coming through. Just let them go. Just let them pass, because it's all backed up there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your brain, remember, it's 100 billion neurobit processor. Yep. When you're talking about light and everything in the universe, they now know that one neutron or one proton, I guess you'd say, or whatever you'd say, the light molecule could hold all the information in the universe in one.
Wow. And one photon.
Yeah. So right now, what they're doing in computer science is they're trying to figure out how to store data in light.
Yeah, I knew that.
Well, we are
those
that
clear
light.
Chips, right? Because they can.
Yep. Huh. We are that light. Mm-hmm. Every cell, every molecule holds the information. Every DNA pair, everything you have the information of the universe inside you. We just don't have access to it.
Well, and that's why, like, if you want to get weird for a second, because I love skulls. Like, she loves crystals. I love the skull version. And if you go to the crystal skulls, the legend of them is that they're these quartz clear skulls that have, with light, they have all of the information or all of the knowledge encoded into that. And that's what they're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I was blessed to go see the crystal skulls exhibit and be able to touch them.
Oh,
so it was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And the reality is that we're all crystal skulls. We're all crystalline substances. Yep. I mean, that crystalline substance I said would reach from here to Pluto, that 80 billion miles of crystalline structure, it's inside you right now. Yep. That's why a lot of supplement companies are now coming out with DNA repair. Yep. Because we've damaged our DNA, and they, like the shoestring, it unravels. Now they have this technology I was talking about with this supplement. They say it regrows it. In 3 months, it grows back 30% of it. So you think about it, we need to keep those tight, because that's where the light's bouncing back and forth. So when you think about the ones and zeros on a computer code, we have codes inside of us, the God code. We are divine in nature. In fact, J.J. Hurtak, who wrote the book Keys of Enoch, it's a really cool book, and he has chants that they do, and they're the divine names, 108 divine names, and people will have ascension kind of experiences, because when you activate these codes, we're designed to activate.
Yeah.
We just have to be in the right environment. So, but when we're around poor light, so in the book we talk about, we don't go into too much spiritual stuff because it's for businesses, but or metaphysical kind of stuff. But that'll be a later book. My book called Shamanism in the 21st Century. When I write that book, it'll have all that.
Oh, I love that.
So in the process, but so number 2 is movement. Number 3 is brain fitness. You need to settle. Now, if you don't use BrainTap, that's fine. You need to do some kind of breath work, or you need to do some mindfulness training. BrainTap just makes it easy. Yeah. So and I like easy, and some people go, well, what if I get addicted to it? I said, I don't know. I've been doing it since 1986. So, I don't know if I'm addicted to it. So, if you don't have stress, then we live in a world of stress. It's 100%. One thing I can count on is tomorrow is going to be different from today. But some people will wake up, and Deepak Chopra said it best. He said, 97% of what's going to happen to you tomorrow, you know about today. What are you pretending not to know? Yeah. So when you settle in with brain fitness, you start to plan your day. And they call this brain priming in neuroscience. So when you think about brain priming, it's like learning anything. You like reading, for instance. In my book, Awaken the Genius, I talk about how to read faster. Yeah. What you do is you basically go to the chapter you want to read. This is for self-help books, not for novels. But if you look at a self-help book, take all of the bold, italicized pictures and all that. That's all you look at in the chapter first. Not for retention, just to prime your brain. Now you can read that chapter up to 10 times faster.
Because you know what's coming.
Because now your brain has a place to store it. So think about it like you're formatting the hard drive to put the information into it. So we need to brain prime our day, our life, our future, because it's doing it anyway, but it's doing it by default. And some people, their default mode network is trained by brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, preachers, and teachers. And some of them were good, some of them were bad. If the good ones, keep them. If they're bad, let's eject them. Let's reformat them. But that takes energy. It takes energy to reformat. Like when the computer says, I'm going to defrag your hard drive, you can't use this computer for an hour or whatever. Yep. That's your brain needs that same thing. You need to defrag your brain, so you have access to all those dendrite connections and all those kind of things. We need to take time to let the brain do its work. If we're always working, we're not designed to work 24/7. And most people don't realize too that they do more neurological work while you're sleeping than when you're awake.
Yeah, it actually.
So your brain is more active while you're sleeping than when you're awake. So when you're not sleeping, you're not getting that neurological work done.
Yeah, that's when you actually make all those synaptic connections and the dendritic sprouting and all that fun stuff happens. So I love that. I mean, that just those 3 things right there of, getting good, clean food, movement is life. That's something I love that mantra. And then finding a way to relax. I think if people just do those 3 things, I think that takes them a huge place.
Yeah.
And then when they sleep, that's when you incubate your superpowers. So, if anybody's listening is going through a hard time right now, think of it like this. You have to reframe everything. In my book, I talk about how I was blessed to be the son of an alcoholic, because if my dad wasn't an alcoholic, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Right? So you need to take whatever you're going through right now, whatever struggles, whatever stress, that's training you to be a teacher to the next person. You're being trained. So once you're trained, you have a superpower now. You know your kryptonite. What's your kryptonite? Now you can choose to say your kryptonite has power over you, which I don't believe. One of the steps in AA is that alcohol is more powerful than me. No, it's not. Not if I don't put it in my body. That's why they call it spirits. So the spirit of the alcohol will take over if I put it in my body. And if I choose to have a glass of wine or something like that, that's fine. But I'm choosing to do that. But if I take 2 or 3 or 4, or a bottle, then I don't have control anymore, because now the biological system gets out of tune like an instrument. Yeah. And now it's subject to whatever whims are out there in the quantum universe, and you start doing crazy things. And some people do it because they know they can do crazy things, and they won't do it on a conscious level. So they give themselves permission to do it.
It's a whole other problem to work on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So as we kind of wrap this, I'm going to have to listen to this one like 5 or 6 times, because I'm taking notes over here as we're going through this already. But again, I think if people just did those 3 things, and I love how you said that last piece there about how you're being trained for how to handle your life. And I know you and I have said that with everything you went through. Again, with alcohol, we haven't drank in
17 and a half years.
and a half years because of what our demons were and things like that. So, those are things that trained us for where we're going.
Absolutely.
And so that has made us who we are and what we are, just like Doc, what you went through made you who you are. And
Yep.
yeah, we all wouldn't be sitting here, I think, if it wasn't for alcohol and the challenge of getting through whatever that piece was for us. That's fascinating. I never knew that piece with you. Any parting words as we wrap this up? And this has been amazing. Thank you so much for this.
All right. Well, I think let's wrap it up with what Steve Jobs said. You can't connect the dots forward. You can only connect dots backwards. You're here for a purpose. You're here for a reason. Right now is the divine moment. Every moment is a divine moment. You're here. If you can find the expression in this moment, why you're here, what's the conversation, what's the discovery, what are you here to add to plus, then your life will have purpose. And if you have purpose, you'll have energy. And energy is the equation. If we can solve the energy problem, it's not just in the world, it's in our brains, in our body, in our nervous system, it's in our mitochondria. It all trickles down. So, find that purpose and realize that you're not here by mistake. If you've listened this far, I'm a mission to better a billion brains. You're listening. So, do something to better your brain, because if you better your brain, you're going to better society. Because we know, like the mice, that if I better myself, even though I might not ever meet you, if you're listening to this, you're helping me, because it's all going into the field and it's all helping us. So, let's just start moving toward that purpose, and we'll have a better world.
I love that.
Purpose.
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for being on, Doc. I learned, like I said, I'm taking
So
notes.
much.
I'm going to have to go back through this one and learn the rest. So we really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for listening. And hopefully you got a lot out of this. If you need to rewatch this one, rewatch it or re-listen to it. Probably tonight. So again, thank you. And I look forward to, when does the book come out?
It's October. They can buy it now, though. It's on all the places right now. K House does a really good job of promoting. So it's
good. We'll have the link below
everywhere.
Then, so people can order that as well.
And for those of you that are in the office, we'll have one in the office, probably as long as it takes Amazon to get it here.
Yep. So. Thank you, Dr. This has been wonderful.
Well, thanks for having me. I always love talking to you too.
Thank you.